Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the MLB slate for today. It's starting once again at 1 o'clock, which I do really enjoy, especially when we have NBA going on in the evening. It's just nice to kind of figure out your MLB in the morning and then kind of get your NBA together in the evening. So hopefully we get some more of these 1 o'clock slates. I do enjoy them. So let's go ahead and get started. As always, really appreciate if you guys hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow on Twitter at the DFS Process. Check out the website, dfsprocess.net, and let's get started. So we'll look at the lineups and totals like we always do. Start off. Marlins still haven't announced a starting pitcher. It looks like it could be Nick Neidert, a guy that spent much of his time last few years in the minor leagues. Is like their 12th prospect. The Mets, coming off of a loss where they left a lot of runners on base against the Phillies. I think they could be somewhat interesting, especially with looking at their price tags. If it is Neidert, you can look to Brandon Nimmo. Conforto has two left-handed outfielders below 3,600. Dominic Smith gives you a lot of power. He's 46, so I'd rather go to Conforto or Nemo. But the Mets could be interesting depending on who the Marlins officially announce. If it is Neidert, then I do like them a little bit. The Cubs, their offense has been very cold to start the year. They're going up against a lefty, Tyler Anderson. This is already the second time Anderson has faced the Cubs this year. He was solid against them in the opening. In the first game that he faced them, he gave up one home run to Chris Bryant, and then the rest was really solid. So I'm not really looking at the Cubs too much here. The wind is blowing in. It's not a great ballpark to hit in. You could look to a couple of one-offs like Baez or Bryant, but they are expensive already, so I don't really want to pay that much for them. Especially when we have like the Rockies on the slate going up against Merrill Kelly, and looking at their price tags, they are just really nicely priced. You got CJ Cron, first base option with a lot of power at only $3,800. You got Garrett Hampson batting second at only $3,200. You have Tapia, $3,700 leadoff hitter. Josh Fuentes, Dom Nunez, two cheap guys you can also fill at your bottom, and then you got the power in the lineup with Story and Blackman. So I got to consider the Rockies as one of my favorite stacks today. The other stacks that I do like, besides the Red Sox, are also definitely in play against Matt Harvey. You can look to guys like Verdugo, although he's been off to a little bit of a cold start. He still gives you a lot of upside. I love JD Martinez the way he's looking this year. Bogarts also, Bogarts not in the lineup. Maybe he got hurt yesterday. But Bogarts is in the lineup. He looks appealing. I'll take a look at that. In the lineup or not. Should be in the lineup today. I don't know if they're going to give him a day off or not. But Red Sox are definitely appealing. And then you get two really powerful offenses down here with the Minnesota Twins and the Chicago White Sox, both facing off against pitchers that can get blown up, as we saw on opening day for Brad Keller, and then Marco Gonzalez as well. He got lit up in his first start. The Twins, we know they can hit lefties really well, especially Nelson Cruz, one of the best lefty mashers of all time. You have Kyle Garlick, second, projected about second in the lineup at only $2,400. That opens up a lot for your lineup. Mitch Garver, leadoff catcher at $4,500. You got Sano with a lot of power, Buxton with a lot of power. Jorge Polanco has a cheap second base option, so I gotta like the Twins a lot. And I do like the White Sox as well. Their lineup looks better when Tim Anderson is at the top of the lineup, but they're still appealing with Abreu, Roberts, Moncada in the middle of that lineup. And then the Brewers don't have as high of a total as I thought. Wainwright did get hit hard on his first start. I would look to the lefties on the Brewers with Shaw, Jackie Bradley, Yelich, Colton Wong if he's in the lineup, and like Narvaez as a cheap catcher. So looking at the stacks, I'd say the Twins might be my favorite stack, followed by the Rockies, followed by the Red Sox, followed by the Mets, and then the Brewers. Looking at the pitching options today, you got two guys that give you a ton of upside at the top end with Berrios and Burns, two big time. Firstly, Burns, a big time strikeout pitcher. Berrios showed off his strikeout stuff on opening day against the Brewers. Good spot against the Seattle's lineup, which does strike out at a very high clip. I love Berrios as an SP1 today. Then I think you could go with the dual stud pitcher approach just because there are a lot of cheap plays that I do like that we can fill our bats with. So Berrios is the way that I like to approach it. You could go with Jake Arrieta at $8,500 if you wanted to. You could also go cheap here with a potential Taiwan Walker against the Marlins, or you could even take a shot on a Anderson at only $6,600. Could get it done against the Cubbies. John Gray would be a nice option for tournaments just because Diamondbacks don't have the best lineup, and Gray is a guy that does have a lot of talent. He's been pitching in cores his whole career, so he's been experienced with that. He's a guy you could look to if you want it to be different. Then I don't really want to touch Harvey, Wainwright, Gonzalez, Kelly, Keller as SP2. So it's basically the guys Like Anderson is a guy I'd consider, maybe Gray for tournaments, and then possibly Taiwan Walker. But I feel pretty confident going Burns and Barrios with my pitching. At catcher, basically the couple guys I mentioned when we were looking at the lineups here, like Dom Nunez looks appealing, Narvaez looks appealing. Like some might get a cheap catcher. When I pay up at pitcher, I'll probably go with cheap at catcher. First base, you have Abreu all the way up to 55. He gives you a ton of upside. He's always in play, especially when he might not get that much ownership, which you probably won't today. I'm looking down to like CJ Cron is only $3,800 in cores. He's gone off to a bit of a slow start, but it doesn't really matter. I know he's better against lefties, but in cores at only $3,800 with the Rockies having the highest total on the slate, he's got to be in play. And then you could look to a Miguel Sano at 4K. Second base, yeah, definitely not going to pay over 6K for Whit Merrifield on the slate. I mean, he's been amazing to start the year, but I cannot justify that. Spending that much for him at second base. I'd rather go down to Ryan McMahon at $4,500. You also have more cheap plays here with a Jorge Polanco is only $3,500 against a lefty. He also looks very nice. Third base, it is probably going to be a spot where I also can go down a little bit to a Ryan McMahon at $4,500. You could look to some of the stacks that I do like, so kind of to see if any of these stacks look appealing. Moncada, $4,600, gives you a lot of power. He's better against righties, so he's going to be in play. The Mets aren't that appealing unless J.D. Davis is in the lineup. He's only $3,600, and then the Brewers side, Travis Shaw at 4K would be a guy that we could look to. Go back to first base, and I'll probably plug in like CJ Cron, just because he's only $3,800, batting like fifth in the lineup. With them having almost a 6-run total, should be able to put up, hopefully get some RBI opportunities against Merrill Kelly, who isn't the best. He can get the job done at times, but in cores, I don't think it's a very good spot to target him. Back to third base, Rafael Devers, really tough start to the season for him. He's only averaging 2.5 DraftKings points. Only is 2 for 19 to start with no extra base hits in those 2 hits. So 54 is expensive. I don't think I really want to get to him. I'd rather, like I mentioned, go down to Moncada, maybe go down to a McMahon at $4,500, and then for cheaper plays here, if there is, you can look to Shaw at 4K, and then maybe if VR is in the lineup at 3,100. Back to shortstop, it is Bogarts is 57. The Red Sox are very expensive, so they are a great stack, but you might have to go with a couple of like 1 or 2 man stack instead of full stacking if you are going to pay up at pitcher. I think I can go down to like a Lindor. I do like the Mets today as a stack against Nieder if it is going to be him as a pitcher. Lindor's gotten off to a cold start, but they've only been 3 games for him, so it's not too big of a deal. He hits lefties and righties well. Each a guy that should be able to, if he's on base, he's a guy that does contend for stolen bases, so he gives you that upside. He gives you power upside, and he's batting, second or see where he's probably batting like third in the lineup today. Or second in the lineup, gives you, probably 5 at-bats, chance to get 5 at-bats if the Mets stack is able to go off today. And then in the outfield, it's going to be Nelson Cruz as a guy I like a lot at $5,400. Just looking at his splits here against lefties. I mean, most of you guys probably know this if you have been playing DFS MLB for a while, but for people that haven't, Nelson Cruz is the best, at least top 3 lefty masher in baseball. We'll look at his splits here. So far this season, he's gone off to another great start. I mean, this guy's, I think he's 40 years old. Continues to mash the ball. This year so far, he has 4 hits in 6 at-bats against left-handed pitching. Last year, he batted .465 with 6 bombs in just 43 at-bats against lefties. That was crazy. That was good for a .442 ISO. Only struck out 7.8% of the time. Even back in 2019, he hit really well, .322 with 16 bombs in 115 at-bats. That was good for a .461 ISO. Nelson Cruz is the unquestioned lefty masher of baseball. I got to consider him against Marco Gonzalez, especially if Gonzalez continues to kind of be on the decline this year, and he's a guy that does serve up some home run platters on a nice plate. So Nelson Cruz, 5,400 is a guy I want to get to, and then going back to second base, Garrett Hampson is a guy we can look to. He's only $3,200, especially if he bats second in the lineup. He's a guy that will be probably a staple in cash games. Gives you some upside, get on base. He hits for a decent average. Had 3 stolen bases against the Diamondbacks the other day, so it gives you speed on the base paths as well. You gotta be considering him at just 3,200. So that is pretty much it for the DK side. So going expensive with my pitchers, Barrios, Burns, looking at the Rockies, the Mets, the Twins as my favorite stacks, followed with the Red Sox also in the mix. So that is it for DK. Let's go over to FanDuel. Over on FanDuel here, looking at the pitching options. Going to start with Barrios as your most expensive guy. He's 96, followed by Corbin Burns at 94. Both guys give you a lot of upside. Both guys are definitely in play. Barrios has a better matchup here. Just Burns can rack up a lot of strikeouts, but I will side with Barrios. Also can get you a lot of strikeouts, and the matchup is a lot better. Cardinals lineup does have a lot of righties, but they do have some power in there with Goldie and with Nolan Arenado now in the mix. Don't really want to go to Arrieta at 85. You could look to Lance Lynn if you wanted to save some money. But FanDuel, I usually like to, unless there's a cheap guy that gives you a lot of upside, like it was with Jack Flaherty in the 7K range. I don't really see anybody today that makes me want to go to them. So unless you could go all the way down to a John Gray at 6,200 if you wanted to. But there are some cheap hitters that may kind of allows you to pay up at pitcher pretty easily. Starting with catcher first base, like Crone is very expensive on FanDuel, so I'd rather play him on DraftKings. A guy that I would play on FanDuel is going to be Mitch Garver, especially if he bats leadoff again against a lefty. He's only $2,400. Gives you a lot of power. Gives you, especially against lefties, he's a lot better against left-handed pitching. I like the Twins a lot today. I think they'll be able to put up some runs against a lefty, and Garver's $2,400 kind of fits right where I want to go with as a cheap guy. Second base, go down here a little bit to like a Garrett Hampson at $3,200. You also can look to a leadoff hitter in if Colton Wong is in the lineup, or Kike Hernandez. The second base filled with a lot of cheap guys that we can look to, but I am gonna go with Hampson again just because he's pretty affordable still. He's a guy that if he bats like second in the lineup again, then he gives you upside to kind of get on base and maybe get some steals. Projected about 8th, but he's been hitting at the top of the lineup recently, and I expect that to continue. Third base, it is base. I mean, I'm not going to pay 39 for Cabrera when I can get to McMahon at 37, or Arenado is even cheaper than that, although definitely don't want to play him in cash against Burns, but as a tournament option, he's in the mix. Moncada is really appealing at his price tag at only $3,100. Fuentes is only $3,100 as well, and then you have Devers is only $2,900. I got to kind of consider that price tag for Devers. I mean, he's really cheap. He's been off to a really cold start, but he's a guy that still gives you a lot of upside. I love the Red Sox today against Matt Harvey. You know, he's not as scary of a pitcher. So I expect the Red Sox to put up some runs, and Devers, we can get him at only $2,900. I would say that is a steal. And the shortstop is basically Bogarts, Lindor, Story as a top end guys to consider. If you wanted to go down, it's Polanco is only $2,500 as a cheap hitter, but those 4 I would probably consider. And then in the outfield, it's going to be Nelson Cruz again, just because he's 4,200 is expensive, but I can get to him pretty easily by going with like Devers and going with Garver as 2 cheap guys that I really like. Expect Cruz to be able to do some damage today against Gonzalez. Doesn't really scare me in terms of getting struck out today. I think he'll be able to put the ball in play, and we know what he does against lefties, so he's a great option to kind of pay up for on this slate. And that is pretty much it for the video. So thank you guys for watching. Best of luck in this MLB slate, and I'll catch you all next time.